And next up is NuTech Systems, and this will be presented by Tim Kahn.
And I appreciate that, Jeffrey. And it's actually NuTech Innovations.
Tech Innovation.
We sell a cutting system, so close enough. Here we go. So I really much have appreciated the talk so far today, especially the last session on commercialization pathways. This particular tool, the commercialization pathway, was quite remarkable in that we were approached by industry to build it, with the prize being hundreds of thousands of dollars of savings to a large operating company in the removal of risers and piles in abandonment operations. So we wanted to make a simple tool. We wanted to make it significant in terms of its impact of reducing costs compared to traditional methods in removing risers and piles. So I'm going to talk about, abandonment methods, typically in the removal of risers, piles, even casing. The old style on the left was, it's still being done today, is of course excavating the well, the riser, even piles in some case, where you bring in heavy equipment. There's fire hazards, high emissions, lots of equipment, and at highest cost. And other methods include, jet cutting, again, more equipment, more personnel on location, higher emissions, but typically used just for casing. And then the third method developed several years ago was the internal pipe cutting system, which we call Excalibur, and that gives industry a method to minimize the amount of equipment on location. One person, in fact, can run these tools, lowest overall cost, least emissions, highly portable, and really doing more with less is kind of where we've taken the technology. So to the theme of making it simple but significant, we have people show up at our facility where we manufacture these tools. They take 1 hour of training. They can send one guy in the field on a quad with a Honda generator, highly portable. You can go in the bush, easy to replace parts in the field. The significant side of things was, again, back to that very large operator, they needed to greatly reduce the costs associated with removing risers and piles. They felt that they could impact and even acquire companies and assume those liabilities and reduce all those costs associated with abandonments. One common theme in abandonment operations is people don't like to spend much money on them, and the less you spend, the better off you are. And of course, significant in that less time to create your cuts and pull your risers and piles out of the ground. This is an internal cutter. Many of you have seen external pipe cutters. Well, what we're doing here, and I'll talk more about that in the talk, is we're going inside the riser and the pile, and we're cutting both of those and then pulling them out of the ground without having to, of course, excavate. That gives you minimal ground disturbance, less environmental impact, less equipment on location, less people out there driving a truck, low cost, and of course, it's a very safe operation as well. So I should mention as well that part of the requirements in abandoning certainly risers is you have to run a barrier plug into the riser. That's the first operation. You then run the cutting tool above that, make a cut and pull the riser out of the ground. These are, some people call them plumber's plugs. We manufacture those as well. And of course, we have the setting tools to be able to go down. Typically, 3 meters is typically within the range of where people run the plugs, and then come up a couple inches and do your cut. So what would be any presentation without some specifications? Basically, what can come out of this slide is we make tools from 2 inches up to 12 inches, and we have all the associated plugs that go with them, setting tools, different shoe kits, we can make, we make Schedule 40 and Schedule 80 cutting wheels. And yeah, that's the tool specs. We basically can make anything that industry needs to do internal pipe cutting. So what I'm going to do is play a little video. Don't worry if the sound doesn't come up, but it's a 1-minute video, and it really brings home kind of what I was talking about and how these tools work. Pardon me.
Thanks, Tim.
I'm still here.
Yeah. No, you're still there. There's a question for you on the Q&A here. Do you have to purge before you do cutting?
Typically you're, oh, pardon me about this. Are you still there?
Yeah. We just can't see if that's okay.
Yeah, that's fine. You don't need to see me. I'm not that good looking.
Yeah.
Typically, yeah, all the pipeline is dry and purged and cleaned out before we're coming out to a dead environment where we're doing these riser cuts. So all that's been done.
And what's the demand for well abandonment services? What's your forecast?
Well, a lot of it's being driven today by, of course, a lot of government funding, either Crown land or Indigenous land. It's remarkable the amount of funding that's even coming out in the US. So that's a logical next place for us to go. I mean, currently there's over 140 companies using this method, principally in Alberta. There's probably over 500 tools in the market. We're just now introducing them into places like Saskatchewan, right next door, and then migrating into the US, where of course there's new fostering, new subsidies going in place for removing wells and facilities down there.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Tim, thank you very much for this. I'll turn this back now to Dan for our next presenter.